Mm, Se me olvidó cómo hacer esto. Dice que está streameando, pero no estoy seguro. Hace casi un año de mi último video. Espero que funcione. Parece que está en vivo. Bueno, bueno, voy a retomar este proyecto. Espero que esto salga bien. La verdad es que quería reiniciarlo. Empezar desde el principio porque he pasado mucho tiempo y la verdad ni siquiera me acuerdo de qué, en qué me quedé. Tuve que ver los videos para acordarme, pero ni modo, empezar a leer. Starting now. There was no sort of noise or fighting in my house, Mr. Captain. She pattered all at once, like peas dropping, speaking, rushing confidently, though with a strong German accent, and no sort of scandal. And his honor came drunk. And it's the whole truth I am telling, Mr. Captain. And I am not to blame. Mine is an honorable house, Mr. Captain, and honorable behavior, Mr. Captain. And I always dislike any scandal myself. But he came, but he came quite tipsy, and asked for 3 bottles again. And then he lifted up one leg and began playing the pianoforte with one foot. And that is not all, that is not at all right in an honorable house. And he Gans broke the piano. No sé qué es Gans broke. And it was very bad manners indeed. And I said so. He took up a bottle and began hitting everyone with it. And then I called the porter, and Carl came. And he took Carl and hit him in the eye. And he hit Henriette, Henry, Henriette, Henriette, and he hit Henriette in the eye, too, and gave me 5 slaps on the cheek. And it was so ungentlemanly in an honorable house, Mr. Captain, and I screamed. And he opened the window over the canal, the canal, I think, and stood in the window, squealing like a pig, like a little pig. It was a disgrace. The idea of squealing like a little pig at the window into the street. Fie upon him. And Carl pulled him away from the window by his coat. And it is true, Mr. Captain, he tore Sign Rock. I guess that's the name of it. And then he shouted, "That man must pay him 15 rubles damages." And I did pay him, Mr. Captain, 5 rubles for Sign Rock. And he is an ungentlemanly visitor and caused all this scandal. "I will show you up," he said, "for I can write to all the papers about you." Then he was an author. Yes, Mr. Captain. And what an ungentlemanly visitor in an honorable house. Now then, enough. I have told you already, Ilya Petrovich. The head clerk repeated significantly. The assistant glanced rapidly at him. The head clerk slightly shook his head. "So I tell you this, most respectable Louise Ivanova, and I tell it you for the last time," the assistant went on. If there is a scandal in your honorable house once again, I will put you yourself in the lockup, as it is, sorry, as it is called in polite society. Do you hear? Literary man, an author, took 5 rubles for his coattail in an honorable house. A nice set, these authors. And he cast a contemptuous glance at Raskolnikov. There was a scandal the other day in the restaurant, too. An author had eaten his dinner and would not pay. I'll write a satire on you, says he. And there was another of them on a steamer last week. Used the most disgraceful language to the respectable family of a civil counselor, his wife and daughter, and there was one of them turned out of a confectionery shop. Sorry, I don't know what that is. Oh, una tienda de dulces, supongo. Okay. Then turned out of a confectionery shop the other day. They're like that. Authors, literary men, students, town criers. Pfoo. I don't know how to read onomatopoeias. You get along. I shall look in upon you myself one day. Then you had better be careful. Do you hear? With hurried deference, Louise Ivanova fell to curtsying in all directions, and so curtsied herself to the door. But at the door, she stumbled backwards against a good-looking officer with a fresh, open face and splendid, thick, fair whiskers. This was the superintendent of the district himself, Nikodem Fomich. Nikodem Fomich. I'm gonna just roll with it. Louise Ivanova made haste to curtsy almost to the ground, and with mincing little steps she fluttered out of the office. Again, thunder and lightning, a hurricane, said Nikodem Fomich to Ilya Petrovich in a civil and friendly tone. You are roused again. You are fuming again. I heard it on the stairs. Well, what then? Ilya Petrovich drawled, with a gentlemanly nonchalance, and he walked with some papers to another table, with a jaunty swing of his shoulders at each step. Here, if you will kindly look, an author or a student has been one at least, but does not pay his debts, has given you an IOU, won't clear out of his room, and complaints and constantly being lodged against him. And here he has been pleased to make a protest against my smoking in his presence. He behaves like a cat himself, and just look at him, please. Here's a gentleman, and very attractive he is. Poverty is not a vice, my friend, but we know you go off like powder. You can't bear a slight. I dare say you took offense at something and went too far yourself, continued Nikodem Fomich, turning affably. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I don't know what it means. Affably means in a friendly, pleasant, and easygoing manner. Okay. Turning affably to Raskolnikov. But you were wrong there. He is a capital fellow, I assure you, but explosive, explosive. He gets hot, fires up, boils over, and no stopping him. And then it's all over. And at the bottom, he's a heart of gold. His nickname in the regiment was the Explosive Lieutenant. And what regiment it was, too. And what a regiment it was, too, cried Ilya Petrovich, much gratified at the agreeable banter. Though still sulky, Raskolnikov had a sudden desire to say something exceptionally pleasant to them all. Excuse me, Captain, he began easily, suddenly addressing Nicodim Fomitch. Will you enter into my position? I am ready to ask pardon. If I have been ill mannered, I am a poor student, sick and shattered. Shattered was a word he used. By poverty, I am not studying because I cannot keep myself now, but I shall get the money. I have a mother and a sister in a province of X. In a province of X. They will send it to me, and I will pay. My landlady is a good hearted woman, but she is so exasperated at the at my having lost in my lessons and not paying her for the last 4 months that she does not even send up my dinner. And I don't understand this IOU at all. She is asking me to pay her on this IOU. How am I to pay her? Judge for yourselves. But that is not our business, you know? The head clerk was observing. Yes, yes, I perfectly agree with you. But allow me to explain. Raskolnikov put it put in again, still addressing Nicodim Fomitch, but trying his best to address Ilya Petrovich also, though the latter persistently appeared to be rummaging among his papers and to be contemptuously oblivious of him. Allow me to explain that I have been living with her for nearly 3 years, and at first, for why should I not confess it? At the very beginning, I promised to marry her daughter. It was a verbal promise, freely given. She was a girl. Indeed, I liked her, though I was not in love with her. A youthful affair, in fact. That is, I mean to say that my landlady gave me credit freely in those days, and I led a life of, I was very heedless. Ah, Português é headless, por isso é heedless. Showing recklessness, like a woman, significa lo que pensaba. Significa.
Heedless.
Was very heedless. Nobody asked. Nobody asks you for these personal details, sir. We've no time to waste. Ilya Petrovich interposed roughly and with a note of triumph. But Raskolnikov stopped him hotly, though he suddenly found it exceedingly difficult to speak. But excuse me. It is for me to explain how it all happened. In my turn, though I agree with you, it is unnecessary. But a year ago, the girl died of typhus. I remained lodging there as before, and when my landlady moved into her present quarters, she said to me, and in a friendly way, that She had complete trust in me, but still, would I not give her an IOU for the 115 rubles, all the debt I owed her? She said if only I gave her that, she would trust me again as much as I liked, and that she would never, never, those were her own words, make use of that IOU till I could pay of myself. And now, when I have lost my lessons and have nothing to eat, she takes action against me. What am I to what am I to say to that? All these affecting details are no business of ours, Ilya Petrovitch interrupted rudely. Oh, all these affecting details are not no business of ours, Ilya Petrovitch interrupted rudely. You must give a written undertaking. But as for your love affairs and all these tragic events, we have nothing to do with that. Come on now, you're harsh, muttered Nicodim Fomitch, sitting down at the table and also beginning to write. He looked a little ashamed. Right? said the head clerk to he said, Right, said the head clerk to Raskolnikov. Right what? The latter asked gruffly. I will dictate to you. Raskolnikov fancied that the head clerk treated him more casually and contemptuously after his speech. But, strange to say, he suddenly felt completely indifferent to anyone's opinion. And this revulsion took place in a flash, in one instant. If he had cared to think a little, he would have been amazed indeed that he could have talked to them like that minute before, forcing his feelings upon them. And and where had those feelings come from? Now, if the whole room had been filled not with police officers, but with those nearest and dearest to him, he would not have found one human word for them. So empty was his heart, a gloomy sensation of agonizing, everlasting solitude and remoteness took conscious form in his soul. It was not the meanest or sentimental effusions before effusions,
Effusion.
an instance of giving off something. I guess it was not the meanest of his sentimental effusions before Ilya Petrovitch, nor the meanest of the latter triumph over him that had caused this sudden revulsion in his heart. Oh, what he had to do now with his own business, with all these petty vanities, officers, German women, debts, police offices. If he had been sentenced to the burnt at that moment, he would not have stirred, would hardly have heard the sentence to the end. Something was happening to him entirely new, sudden and unknown. It was not that he understood, but he felt clearly, with all the intensity of sensation, that he could never more appeal to these people in the police office with sentimental effusions like his recent outburst, or with anything whatever. And that if they had been his own brothers and sisters, and not police officers, it would have been utterly out of the question to appeal to them in any circumstance of life. He had never experienced such a strange and awful sensation. And what was most agonizing, it was more a sensation than a conception or idea, a direct sensation the most agonizing of all the sensations he had known in his life. The head clerk began dictating to him the usual form of declaration that he could not pay, that he undertook to do so at future date, that he would not leave the town, nor sell his property, and so on. But you can't write, you can hardly hold the pen, observed the head clerk, looking with curiosity at Raskolnikov. Are you ill? Yes, I am giddy. Go on. That's all, sign it. The head clerk took the paper and turned to attend to others. Raskolnikov gave back the pen, but instead of getting up and going away, he put his elbows on the table and pressed his head and hands. He felt as if a nail were being driven into his skull. A strange idea. Oh, fuck me. To his skull. A strange idea suddenly occurred to him to get up at once, to go up to Nicodim Fomitch and tell him everything that had happened yesterday, and then go with him to his lodgings and show him the things in the hole in the corner. The impulse was so strong that he got up from the seat to carry it out. He hadn't better think a minute. Hadn't I better think a minute? Flashed through his mind. No, better cast off the burden without thinking. But all at once he stood still, rooted to the spot. Nicodim Fomitch was talking eagerly with Ilya Petrovitch, and the words reached him. It's impossible. They both be released. They'll both be released. To begin with, the whole story contradicts itself. Why would they have called the porter if it had been their doing? To inform against themselves? Or as a blind? No, that would be too cunning. Besides, Pestryakov, Pestryakov, the student, was seen at the gate by both the porters and a woman as he went in. He was walking with three friends who left him only at the gate, and he asked the porters to direct him in the presence of the friends. Now, would he have asked his way? Would he have asked his way if he had been going with such an object? As for Koch, he spent half an hour at this. The fuck is person who made. Oh, okay. Anyways, at the silver space below. Before he went up at the old woman, he left him at exactly 7:45. Now just consider. But excuse me, how do you explain this contradiction? They state themselves that they knocked and the door was locked. Yet 3 minutes later, when they went up the porter, it turned out the door was unfastened. That's just it. The murderer must have been there and bolted himself in. And they just caught him for a certainty. If Koch had not been an ass and gone to look for the porter too, he must have seized the interval to get downstairs and slip by them just somehow. I think we'll just leave it there. As you can see, I haven't been reading. It's been almost a year, but get back into it.